part 2. This is the beginning of part 2. And I want the audience to get this loud and clear. I do not support squatting. Period. Yeah, welcome back to the Jamaican Young Police channel. This is part 2 of the Cooper's Pen squatters file. And before we go any further, you have heard a legal analyst expert breaking it down to you in part 1, and you're gonna hear more again from the same legal expert breaking it down, to show you that the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization did everything to destroy these people by lying to them, giving them false hope, and cause these people to be expansion on their house, feeling as if they were going to get this land when the owners of the land had followed through the proper procedures in the courts. So this is part 2 of the Cooper's Pen squatters file. And before we go any further, I want to make my position and be unmistakably clear. I do not support squatting. And please, before you go any further, just please type and tell us where you're watching this video from. And remember to like the video. Once you like the video, then a pop-up is going to come and say to hype it. You hype the video, share the video, comment below respectfully. I don't support it when people or persons occupying the land is poor. Yeah, I don't support it. When people make excuse our lies. That is what my mother had taught me as a little boy growing up. I don't support it when the person is rich. I don't support it when the person votes PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization, JLP, or doesn't vote at all. Because the rule of law cannot change depending upon who is breaking it. And that brings me directly to what happened at Cooper's Pen. People have watched the demolition footage and understandably focus on the emotional side. Homes being torn down, families losing structures they had occupied, people hungry and frightened about what comes next. I understand that emotion, but emotion cannot answer the fundamental legal question: who owns the land? Because if somebody owns a piece of property and the courts have determined that the occupants have no lawful right to remain there, what exactly are we saying when we demand that enforcement never take place? Think about your own house. And we're talking to the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization, voters, supporters, activists, and loyalists. And you know that once you drink the PMP juice, there's only a cure for it, a detox, but it has to be political education, and you have to be a critical thinker. PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization, supporters, voters, and activists, they are not critical thinkers, they are organic robots. Suppose you worked for 30 years. You save your money, you sacrifice, you bought a piece of land, you register your title, you paid your taxes. Then somebody walk onto your property and put up a structure and says, I have been here long enough, I am not leaving. Would you accept that? Of course not. So you have some people, where believe in that, free mentality. Why what is yours is mine. You understand? I say we have place back in Jonestown. I don't even know who live there, but that not a valley, 51 Maya Street. I don't know who live there. We still have a little house there and everything there, back, you understand? And we have a house at Portmore. I know the house from Portland was that was my uncle's house. My father have a house on Cassandra Way, Waterford. So we have, you understand what I'm saying, and we have properties in a Middle Quarter, St. Elizabeth, Whitehall, Forest Mountain. I don't even know who live on a Forest Mountain, because all of Forest Mountain land is my grandfather's land. And honestly, I know that is some extended family and everything that live there. And I say I have no interest in that, in lands or anything, because you can't take it with you. I have never seen my mom die, I never see no land behind her when she, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And you know, me have other relative aunts, uncles who pass away, you know, from natural causes. So you can't carry land with you. But at the same rate, I don't believe in nobody for encroach on people long. I don't like squatters, because squatters to me are criminals, thief. That is why, assuming the demolition was carried out pursuant to lawful authority and the applicable court process, I can defend the enforcement action without celebrating anybody's suffering. Those are two completely different things. I don't celebrate seeing somebody lose a home. I don't celebrate children being displaced. But I would defend the principle that a lawful court order cannot become merely a suggestion, because enforcing it is emotionally difficult now. First thing I'm teaching, I don't know about now, but in my days, back in the 80s, the first thing I'm teaching at the Jamaica Police Academy, that sympathy is a crime. First thing that, you know, you understand. So that's why we don't serve sympathy, coffee, tea, breakfast, lunch and dinner over here. Otherwise, what is the purpose of going to court? What is the purpose of a title? What is the purpose of owning property? And here is where Jamaica has to confront an uncomfortable problem. When politicians interfere in land disputes, make promises they may not have the legal power to fulfill, or encourage people to believe that political interference or intervention can override ownership rights, they can create expectations that eventually collide with the law. And the PNP know that. The PNP criminal organization know that them can't fool them supporters and voters and still not lose a vote, because they are programmed like that. And when that collision finally happens, who suffers? Usually not the politician. Not the politicians. And then they came out now blaming this government, because this government is enforcing the law. And we support them. The ordinary people suffer. The squatters. That is why I say politicians should never use people's desperation for housing as political currency. If Jamaicans need affordable housing, and many absolutely do, then government should acquire land lawfully, build housing, establish transparent regulations and regularization programs where legally possible, and create legitimate pathways to ownership. But the solution to poverty cannot simply be find somebody else's land and occupy it. That's how a PNP LGBTQ plus criminal organization have been doing for decades. And it started by a man named Michael Manley from 1972. Michael Manley infect the people's mind with him juice. The PNP LGBTQ plus criminal organization juice. Because the juice evolved, it was PNP, now it's LGBTQ plus juice. Infect them. And then pass it on to them children. And when them children wake up and say, no, that juice are bad, them say, boy, they may even vex with them. But education is paramount. Because once Jamaica accept that principle, nobody property is truly secure. Today it might be a large company. Tomorrow it could be a farmer. Next week it could be an elderly Jamaican who spent a lifetime buying one little piece of land, and eventually it could be you. So my position in part 2 is simple. Have compassion for the displaced. Demand accountability from the PNP LGBTQ plus criminal organization politicians. Demand affordable housing from government. Demand that enforcement be lawful and humane. But also respect private property and respect the decisions of the courts. The courts say if you leave, demolish the house and pay people them the $50,000, you do that. If you don't, you just come and bulldoze it. But also respect private property. Remember that. Because a country cannot simultaneously demand the rule of law and then abandon it whenever enforcement becomes politically uncomfortable. And the PNP drag it out for all these years. And now somebody finally do something about it. And those who are still occupying the land, I say to them, leave. If you don't leave, I support the police and the bailiff to go back there and bulldoze all the houses there. I have no sympathy for thieves. And don't tell me that, because all of us as black people, we are coming from the same background. Slavery, and our foreparents and grandparents, them brush off them backside and never depend on the government work, save and buy them little piece of land. So why who things sound special? Them need to get rid of this adverse land business, boy. You depend people and for 12 years can't get it. Them need to pass a law to make it a crime. This is the Cooper's Pen Squatters File Part 2. And today we are going beyond the emotion. We are following the documents, the decisions, the promises, and the timeline. Because, as always, tell you, data is king. And one thing you get over here is nothing but the real mama papa truth. So you watch, you listen, and you decide this is part 2. I'll just say what you say is not an entertainment channel, you know, or what you say is an educational channel. Facts we're dealing. Yes, welcome to the Jamaica Young Police channel. To our loyal viewers, subscribers, and Patreon members. At the channel, we are a group of law-abiding citizens who believe in the rule of law and respect the rights of every citizen, but not the ones who do not subscribe to such behavior. We do believe in and support preemptive strikes because they save lives. This is a logical conclusion because preemptive strikes save lives and prevent the further loss of lives. We are all about saving lives at this channel. We at the channel aid criminals with a passion and do not want them over here. We do not want your views, your subscriptions, your likes, or your comments. Please go elsewhere where the red carpet is waiting for you. Over here, we want you to go to prison or the departure lounge at Madden. Moving on to today's video.
That does not apply to the court, which must dispense justice according to the law. It is the court's view that the application is devoid of sincerity. It is an attempt to pervert the course of justice and an abuse of the process of the court.
Wow. Justice McIntosh speaking as assertively as that, saying, let me repeat, that the defendants seem to have been, quote, misled by politicians into squatting on private property. Notwithstanding their unlawful act, the court empathizes with the gullible defendants. Not all words, his words. All right. So, therefore, what happened when the minister, subsequent to this judgment, then sued New Falmouth Resorts, the owner of the land, and sued them in his own name?
So he then went on now, George, to file a fresh claim. And when you say a fresh claim, new claim. And he placed himself at the forefront now as the claimant and New Falmouth Resorts as the defendant. He sought several declarations. Among them was that he was entitled to compulsorily acquire the land, that the Commissioner of Lands could take possession of the land, and that the land now vested in the Commissioner of Lands. He sought the injunctions I spoke of earlier, restraining the owner from dealing with his own land and from evicting, an injunction from evicting and disturbing the occupants, and from demolishing or altering the structures. New Falmouth applied to strike out that claim. And when he says strike out, he's telling judge, don't listen to this claim. It has no place in this court. Throw it out. And the matter was heard by Justice Campbell over 5 days. And in 2014 of February, he refused the minister's application for an injunction and struck out the minister's claim entirely. And he gave several reasons, George, as to why he struck it out.
Yes.
He said that one, they didn't satisfy the statutory conditions. What are the statutory conditions? He says that there was no evidence that the minister actually considered housing conditions in the area. There was no evidence of a prepared housing scheme under Section 4.2, nor a prepared housing scheme under Section 6.2, and no approval from the said minister under Section 11. He was referring to the said act that would allow you to make the declaration, but there are certain preliminary steps that had to be done and taken before and after, before it got to this stage. Those were not taken. What is striking to my mind is the government's own evidence, to my mind, defeated the case. Because the affidavit of Simone Morris Rattray, who was as at the time the senior legal officer and the minister's own authorized agent. This is her affidavit. She said that nearly all the occupants had permanent concrete structures with water and electricity, and described the settlement as a vibrant community. But Section 6 of the Housing Act requires the opposite.
Yes.
And I went through what would be required by
Yes.
Section 6. I can go back through it. Section 6 requires, it deals with clearance where conditions are so bad that, no, that's Section 5. Section 6 deals with improvement schemes where the houses in an area are unfit for human habitation through disrepair or sanitary defects, or are dangerous to health because of bad arrangement, narrow or badly arranged streets, or overcrowded. Yeah? Section 6 here, based on the affidavit, it says permanent concrete structures with water and electricity and a vibrant community.
Yeah.
It requires houses unfit for human habitation. I just went through what Section 6 means. He also went on, the judge, to say there was no public purpose, and that is the constitutional core of the case, and I'll deal with it separately. He spoke about the balance of convenience, the fact that the judge, the balance of convenience, the judge thought that it favored the company because the company has been trying to do every single thing to get the people out. And as a matter of fact, when you're seeking an injunction in legal cases, George, there is usually something that you have to put in the application that you undertake to cover damages that arise from an injunction.
Yes.
That was not given.
Yes.
That undertaking was not given.
Yes.
Then the judge went on to say that the claimant's own conduct, he quoted an equitable maxim. He says, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Because apparently a valuation of the owner's property had been procured with no explanation of the authority under which that was done. And then the minister had gone on to gazette the declaration after a judge had already ruled, and that was disregarded by the minister. The judge took that into consideration.
All right. After the break, Said, we have to take the break. It's 6 o'clock. You're going to explain to the listeners, from your perspective, why the court found that there was no public purpose element strong enough to compel him to side with the government in this matter. Well, the then government in this matter of the Cooper's Bend land dispute with the owners, New Falmouth Resorts. After the break. Back with us. So we are contextualizing and summing up what has happened in this long-running legal battle between New Falmouth Resorts, the company that owns that controversial piece of land, Orange Grove, Cooper's Bend in Trelawny, which was the site of a demolition exercise earlier this week. And we've heard a lot of comments about who's in the right, actions of the government then, the things that the government now ought to do, the rights of squatters, the rights of property owners, all of that. And so we've asked Said Bernard to read the judgments, analyze them, and take from the judgments the salient points that can answer the questions that you have about this matter to help your own understanding. Where we had left the conversation at the break was that Said had told us that the Minister of Housing at the time, he went to the court and filed a fresh claim. He wanted the court to rule that the minister was now entitled to compulsorily acquire the land, that the Commissioner of Lands could take possession of the land, and that the land was now vested in the Commissioner of Lands. He also sought injunctions restraining the owner, New Falmouth Resort, from dealing with their own land, restrain them from evicting or disturbing the squatters, and from demolishing or altering any of the structures. Justice Campbell heard the matter over 5 days, and he refused the minister's application, and he gave several reasons. Said says that very important among the reasons was that the court found that there was no public purpose element of the minister's claim. Why did the court find that there was no public purpose element in this matter, Mr. Bernard?
Now imagine, George, you live in a country where you've worked hard, you've saved, you pull shifts, you've been here from morning and you're still here. You buy a piece of land and the government just comes and says, I'm going to take the property from you, I'm going to buy it from you because I'm going to give it to me. Yeah? That is what the Constitution can't allow.
Yes.
And Section 18 of the Constitution, it allows for the compulsory acquisition of land under that law and compensation, access to the court, but it must be for a public purpose. Yeah. Now the judge, when referring back to section 25 of the Housing Act, he says it creates a presumption that acquisition for a scheme is for a public purpose, but he held that that presumption is rebuttable, and that the court is entitled to look beyond the veil, look beyond the stated purpose, look beyond what is in the affidavits, look beyond what the minister has said, and see whether or not it is a sham. Now, this principle of law, George, takes shape from the 1800s in a case called Street and Montfort, ruled in England, where the judge said, you cannot call a spoon a fork, and it must be accepted as a fork. You must look beyond. And if you call it a fork, it does not matter as long as the subject looks and operates like a spoon. Same principle here. So, Justice Campbell went on in paragraph 36 of the judgment, frankly speaking, very blunt, to say the stated or alleged purpose of the claimant, the Minister of Housing, is not for general interest of the community, but merely for private individuals voluntarily associated together for their own benefit. There can be no public purpose or furtherance of the general interest of the community as opposed to the particular interest of individuals, requiring the respondent to locate these families on its land in flagrant breach of the orders of this court.
Yeah, I have told the Jamaican people from the day I started this channel, if you want a better Jamaica, you have to get rid of the mindset that the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization have get our people into this mindset of freeness, licky. And now, the squatters are the one who pay for what Dr. Maurice Guy and the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization have done to these people, because they want to stay in power by giving them false hope. That's why 98% of the people who are in prison in Jamaica are from PMP communities, including mine, Jonestown, Concrete Jungle. So when I tell people that the PMP is a criminal organization, here we go. I am the first person of Jamaican background to tell you that the PMP is a criminal organization. And I know what I'm saying because I have seen it. I know, Burry Boy, Feathermap, all of those murderers that Michael Manley put on pedestal. Just look at the last convention. So I tell you already, and I'll say it to you again, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend who's a PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization, you're in trouble. Believe you me, trouble. You're going to get burned. Lies will be flowing like a river. And in closing, I have one final question for the politicians. If you believe that the people should be permitted to remain on somebody else's private-owned property after the courts have ruled, then answer this. Would you apply the same principle to your own property? Yeah, Dr. Maurice Guy, would you voluntarily open your own property to families who need somewhere to live? Mark Gummer Golden, would you accept strangers occupying your property and then tell them, don't worry about my title, don't worry about a court order, you need somewhere to live, you can stay? I say me, that not to me, because you understand what I'm saying? No, me know that. The freeness. If the answer is no, then don't ask another Jamaican property owner to accept a principle you wouldn't accept for yourself. That is the test of fairness. I am not telling anybody to locate these politicians' home, trespass on their property, threaten them, or confront their families. I am not telling people to do that, to go and find Maurice Guy and go and live on his home, live in his house. Or Mark Gummer Golden. Leave their homes and their families alone. I am challenging the principle, because private property rights cannot depend upon whose property we are discussing. If Dr. Maurice Guy's property deserves protection under Jamaican law, so does New Falmouth Resort property. If Mark Gummer Golden property deserves protection, so does the property of an ordinary Jamaican who worked 40 years to purchase one little piece of land. Land of power. Land is wealth. One law, one standard. Help displaced families. Absolutely. find them lawful housing. But I would tell the government, this Andrew Holness government, do not give them any help. Zero. No help. Because these people, they know what they were doing. The PMP, LGBTQ plus criminal organization, help them obtain land they can actually own. Them find lawful housing. Yeah, the PMP, they must do that. But don't solve poverty by transferring its burden onto another private property owner. That is PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization textbook. And politicians should never give citizens the impression that political power can erase somebody else's title or make court judgment disappear. Because eventually the politics ends and the law remains. Substance over popularity. Give me the book and not the gun. And tonight the book is still the court judgment. So the PMP voters, supporters and activists believe in taking people things. That's what Michael Manley imparted to them from 1972. The bad mind culture, jealousy. That's why brother killed brother over him car and all of these things. I don't bad mind anyone. And I don't support squatting, my people. I want to make my position absolutely clear tonight. I don't support squatting. And I don't care whether the squatters support the PMP LGBTQ plus criminal organization, the Jamaica Labour Party, no political party, or whether the person is my own relative. I don't have no family member who ever believe in them things, thieving people and are squatting. I have people in my family who commit crime but never squat on them thing. You understand? My principle remains the same. If somebody works for 20 or 30 years, save their money, purchases a piece of land, receive a registered title and pay the expenses associated with ownership, I do not believe another person should deliberately occupy that property without permission and eventually be able to say, I have been here long enough now, I want legal ownership. No, meaning of that. Just like you have some people up in mother country where we have land. A girl named Danette Taylor. Them say encroach man will land up there, them thing there. And me have a family at Jamaica and them thing there. Auntie and you understand who was police. I just tell her to just chase them off fight. Coming at them as squatters them, you understand? And them people they are PMP, me I tell you, country people them PMP. Fear father when him dead Owen Taylor. He was the only PMP of our country and them thing there, him and PMP, you understand? When they believe in a thief in people, and to me something is fundamentally wrong with that principle. Now I want to be legally accurate. Adverse possession is a recognized legal doctrine. It has requirements that must be satisfied. And merely stepping onto somebody's property doesn't automatically make the property yours. So I'm not telling you that adverse possession itself is presently a criminal offense. I am arguing that the law should be changed. Because ask yourself a simple question. If I park my car in another man's yard for years, does his yard eventually become mine? Just think about it. If I start using another person's business, does enough time eventually make the business mine? If somebody moves into my house while I am overseas, like what I'm now with my land up a country, up a facey. If somebody moves into my house while I am overseas, should the passage of time eventually become a pathway to claiming my property? I said no. And this issue is especially important for our Jamaicans living overseas. Imagine somebody leaves Jamaica, works abroad for decades and send money home. They buy a little piece of land because their dream is, one day I am going home. You know how many Jamaicans I know that live in America? Oh, right now, I go back to Jamaica because of the crime situation and the government, them trust the government because the government is honest. The best government we have since Edward Seaga. You know, scandal, no criminality, no thief, no go on and them thing. Everything else are just conjecture or innuendos. Then somebody enters the property without permission. A board house appear. Then another structure. Then another. Years pass. Eventually, the owner discovers that the occupation has developed into a legal battle over adverse possession. How can that encourage investment in Jamaica? How does that encourage members of the diaspora to purchase property? Property rights must mean something. A title must mean something. And there is another reason I oppose squatting. When Jamaican government tolerate unauthorized settlement for decades, they aren't necessarily helping poor people. Sometimes they are allowing a bigger disaster to develop. One house become 5, 5 become 50. Children are born there, electricity arrive. Them not supposed to give them. Squatters not supposed to get electricity or water from the government. Period. Because them create them community here. You have to deprive them of that. Business develop. People invest their life savings. And eventually somebody discover the land as an owner. Now government has an enormous humanitarian crisis. And everybody asks, how can you move these family after 20 years? My question is, why did government allow the situation to reach 20 years? That is the failure. If somebody begins unlawfully occupying private property, deal with the problem early through lawful procedures. Don't wait until an entire generation establishes itself there. And don't allow politicians to arrive promising sin. Don't worry, government will regularize you. Regularize what? Scam the PMP, LGBTQ plus criminal, scam the people them as usual. Regularization can be appropriate where government owns the land or where the lawful owner voluntarily agrees to sell. But government should be extremely cautious about creating an expectation that occupation of somebody else's private property will eventually be rewarded. Because incentives matter. If young Jamaicans see that one person works, saves, buys land and pays a mortgage, while another person deliberately occupies land without permission and eventually receive ownership or a government-assisted solution, what lesson are we teaching? We should reward lawful ownership, not deliberate trespass. And there is another issue. Unplanned settlements can create serious challenges for policing and public administration. That's why when a policeman I work with me get 5 shots in him chest in a riverton. Roads may not have been properly laid out. Dirt road, swamp. Addresses may be unclear. Emergency vehicles may struggle to enter. Building standards may not be followed. Electricity and water connection can become unsafe. But let me be equally clear. That does not make squatters criminals. Poverty does not make somebody a criminal. Living in an informal settlement does not make somebody violent. Most people are simply trying to survive. So when I talk about crime, I am talking about the condition that poor planning and government neglect can create. But branding an entire community as criminals, and that distinction matters. Government responsibility should therefore have two sides: protect property rights and create lawful pathways to ownership. Build affordable housing, as we Andrew Hollis doing now, with no other government ever do. The amount of house we him give me, I tell you, free house, change the people them life. Develop service lots, make mortgages accessible, use suitable government-owned land, create transparent rent-to-own programs, speed up land registration processes, help poor Jamaicans become legitimate property owners, give people something with their name on the title. That is empowerment. Because I don't want a poor Jamaican spending 30 years wondering, will somebody eventually bulldoze my house? I want that person holding a tiger saying, this belongs to me. And I also want the Jamaican who already owns property to know the government will protect my rights. those two goals can coexist. So I believe Parliament should seriously examine adverse possession law and ask whether it presents Operation Strikes the right balance for modern Jamaica. Personally, I would favor substantial reform so that somebody who knowingly and deliberately occupies registered private land without owner's permission cannot simply rely upon the passage of time as a pathway towards ownership. Protect legitimate historical claims where justice genuinely requires it. Protect people who purchase property innocently but became trapped in defective title situation but deliberate occupation of another person's registered property. I don't believe that should be rewarded. And finally, stop using house desperation as political currency. That is what the PNP LGBTQ plus criminal organization has been using, encouraging our people to commit crime, and that they're going to protect them. And finally, if Jamaica needs land, create lawful opportunities for them to acquire it. If Jamaica needs houses, build houses. If families need emergency assistance, help them. But don't tell somebody, go there, occupy it, stay long enough, and maybe one day it will become yours. That isn't a sustainable housing policy. That is criminality. Criminal at its best. That creates conflict between poor Jamaicans and property owners when government should have solved the housing problem properly in the first place. My position is simple. Help the poor, protect the property owner, enforce the law, and make lawful ownership possible for every Jamaican. Because the dream shouldn't be, how long can I occupy somebody else's land? The dream should be, how can I get a piece of land with my own name on the title? That is the Jamaica I want to see. Substance over popularity. Give me the book and not the gun. Have yourself a beautiful day. Jamaica Young Police channel out.